Hi, this is Betsy Pruitt with bellyfeathers.com, and this is part 2 of my Frazzled to Fabulous How to Plan a Party to Remember series. So the second step to planning a party is lists, lists, and more lists. Can you tell? I like lists. But this is a great way to take a lot of the stress out of party planning. We want to do all of our thinking and planning ahead of time so that as we get closer to the party, and especially on the day of, we're just executing on a short, manageable list of things that we want to get done. And this is a great quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. It takes as much energy to wish as it does to plan. So in part 1 of this video series, we talked about the brainstorm and how much fun that is. That's our wish stage. And now we're just going to put just a little bit more energy in and do the plan. So the first thing I like to do is grab a party notebook and I start creating lists. And in our brainstorm phase, we talked about picking a color palette. As you can see in this picture, I actually taped color swatches into the notebook. And this is a great way to stay on budget. As I'm out and about and I'm shopping for things for the party, if they don't perfectly coordinate with what I have in mind for my brainstorm, especially the color palette, I don't buy those things. And that's a great way to eliminate extra expenditures that aren't really necessary. So I like to jot down a list for the overall concept and ideas. And actually I have my notebook ready during the brainstorm to help me make that list. And also I forgot to say that in the brainstorm we dream big. We think about all the things that are possible for our party. But in this stage, the list, lists, and more lists, we actually whittle that down to a manageable and realistic level. I make a list for decorations, and in this photo you can see that I've made a little sketch of my entryway in my home for my margarita party, kind of how I want that to look, which things from around my house am I going to move around to put in the entryway that coordinate with the theme, and some extra decorations I'm going to hang as well. Tablescapes. This may be a term that you're not necessarily familiar with, but that's just how you arrange things on certain tables to kind of have a lot of visual appeal and make them coordinate with your theme. Caterers are actually fabulous tablescape artists. They have lots of different levels that are super eye-catching, maybe displays of fruits and vegetables that are really bountiful as the fruit spills out. So just very intriguing things. So I want to have a list for some of the tablescapes, maybe one focal point that I really want to create at the party. The menu. So it's just not good enough to say something like, oh, at my margarita party I want to serve tacos. You really want to list out all the things it takes to make tacos, like the meat filling, the lettuce, the cheese, tomatoes, sour cream, things like that, because I guarantee as you get closer to the party when you do your grocery shopping, you will totally forget something obvious like lettuce for tacos. So don't do that. Go ahead and list out all the components. And at my house, my husband's the cook, so I make him get out his recipes and I jot those down, all the ingredients on the menu list. The guest list. So you definitely want a list of all the people you invite. That helps you know how many invitations you need to order, but also I'm always amazed at who I will totally forget off my invitation list. I have a set of friends that are always invited to all my parties, but I'm amazed at as I write down those names and then a week later I'm checking Facebook and I realize, oh my gosh, I forgot Brandy. Brandy's always invited. So keep a list so that you'll know who you really want to invite, not to leave anyone off. A to-do list. You know, as you plan a party, there are some things that may be around your house that you want to do. And at my house, I always have 1 or 2 light bulbs burn out somewhere. So before the party, I want to go around and replace all those light bulbs. But if I don't list those down to do, even though I think that's something obvious to do, I'll forget that if I don't write it down. So we're going to put that on the to-do list. And then also to buy. You know, like I said in part 1 of the series, I'm a big fan of shopping your house for things that will work with your party theme. But there are certain things you might want to buy, like paper plates and napkins that coordinate with your look. So go ahead and start jotting those down on a to-buy list. Then in our party notebook, we want to break that list into smaller lists. So like I said, this is lists, lists, and more lists, but this is really going to help us de-stress to do this. So some examples of how I do that. For this margarita party, I broke the menu down into things that I wanted to cook and then things I wanted to buy pre-made. So as I said, my husband, he's a great cook. So for this party, he made both of the meat dishes and also the salsa. But when it comes to Mexican food, you just can't beat those chips and the queso dip you can get at a Mexican restaurant. So we just went ahead and bought those. So that was on my list from a restaurant called Phil Sandoval's. To buy. As you get closer to your party, you want to break that to-buy list down into each of the individual stores you need to go to. So for my party, I had like a Lowe's list, and light bulbs might be on that. Target, some of the ordinary things you might want to stock up on for a party, and then Publix for my groceries. That really keeps you on task as you go to those stores so that you don't forget anything. If you're trying to go through your to-buy list, your big long list at each one of these stores you go to, you'll probably miss something, so go ahead and save yourself some trouble and break that list out. For this party, I ordered some cute paper straws, so that was on my online list for Etsy. And then I got some cute Mexican sodas at Kroger. And if you happen to be planning a Mexican party, Kroger has a great selection of things. Then you want to take your to-do list and all of these lists, and you want to break those down into a timeline. This is another way that's going to remove a lot of the stress from our party planning. So let's walk through a typical timeline I might have for this party. So 2 weeks before, I'm going to go ahead and iron my tablecloths. I love cloth tablecloths, but I hate ironing them, so I'm going to get that out of the way early. And I typically like to plan parties 6 weeks in advance, and sometimes longer. To some people that may sound crazy, so I've just started with about 2 weeks in this example. And then I also might want to mulch my flower beds. I like that entryway to look nice for a party, and this is a little something fussy that I do, so that might not be on your list, but it's certainly on mine. And then 1 week before, if I'm going to have guests outside on my patio, I want to go and put some eyes on that patio furniture, maybe dust the pollen off, look for cobwebs, things like that. Get those nice and fresh. And then I'm going to wash my margarita glasses. I have a dining room where hardly anybody goes, so I can go ahead and wash those glasses early and go ahead and have them ready upside down in the dining room. Then the night before the party, I'm going to make salsa. I need enough time for those flavors to meld, but I don't want to make that too far in advance that it starts to spoil before the party. And I'm going to arrange my serving dishes the way I want them in my dining room or wherever you might be serving. And this is another pro tip. I go ahead and put my serving dishes out with their utensils, and then I put a slip of paper and I write down what's going to go in that serving dish, and I put that in each one of the dishes. And that's a great way if somebody's going to come the day before the party or the day of the party and help me set up, I can just go ahead and point them to those, and they already know what should go in each one of those dishes. It's just a great way to save time and let others help pitch in and help you out. And then the day of, I'm going to salt the margarita glasses. That's not something you can do very far in advance because that salt will fall off. And then I typically don't have enough room in my freezer for ice for drinks and things like that, so I'm going to buy that and put it in a cooler to be ready for the party. And this is a particularly critical step in the timeline, the hour before the party. These are lots of obvious things probably that you think that you'll remember, but like I said, we want to do the thinking about what we need to do for this party ahead of time so that on the day of we're just executing a short manageable list. These are all things that are very low stress but that you can't do in advance. And so if our party, a main component of the decor, let's say, is candles, it seems obvious that we would remember to light those candles before guests arrive, but I guarantee you'll have like 10 guests at your party and you'll realize, oh my gosh, I didn't light these candles, and so then you're running around like a mad person trying to get them all lit, and that really takes you away from enjoying your guests as they arrive and things like that. So don't do that. Put this on, all these little obvious things onto your hour before the party. Also, if you're preparing food, your kitchen trash probably fills up really fast. So go ahead and take that out. It's going to be really uncomfortable if your guests are they don't have enough room to put their paper plates and things like that in the trash, and then you definitely don't want them reaching in the trash and trying to squish things down. So put that on your obvious list, hour before, things that you're going to get done. So that's part 2 of Frazzled to Fabulous. Stay tuned on my YouTube channel for part 3. Definitely visit me on bellyfeathers.com too.